You are going to really enjoy the Elizabeth Theo Boyd today. She was born and raised on a farm in Whitney, Texas, which is between Waco and Dallas for those paying attention. So, small town America. She was named after her grandmothers, Thelma and Elizabeth, and known as Theo pretty much since middle school. She pursued higher education and became an acclaimed creative writing and English teacher. And in 2019, she experienced traumatic loss that inspired her debut memoir, My Grief's Not Like Yours, and launched her podcast, Think Theo, where she explores the complexities of grief. Since the book's release in May 2023, Theo has been featured on so many media outlets, including Newsweek, The Sun, Daily Mail. She's received 17 national and international book awards, including the Indie Excellence Award, 2 Global Book Awards, and the 2025 Rising Lone Star Author Award. That's a good one. When not writing or speaking, she enjoys farm life with her dog, Manly, whom she loves, as they build their new home. She is passionate about helping others navigate grief and using personal stories and national research to offer hope and healing. And she's recently become a certified grief educator. I know you will enjoy the conversation today because it's going to cover many issues that I think will touch things in your life that you just didn't realize until you hear it. Let's get going. Welcome to my realm. I'm Tami Jorden, and this is Butterfly Days, the podcast that proves you're not past your prime. You're living in it right now because women don't have expiration dates. Butterfly Days is a celebration of the extraordinary potential of Gen X and Boomer women. Throughout history, women have shared wisdom to uplift and empower one another. And you're about to learn hard-earned wisdom and best-kept secrets from interesting, inspiring women. So if you're ready to embrace your butterfly season with confidence, find joy in the present, and create a legacy that matters, you're in the right place. No more holding back. Let's spread our wings now. Here we go. Welcome to my realm. This is Tami Jorden, and you're listening to Butterfly Days. Today we have a very special guest. Theo Boyd is with us. She is the acclaimed author of My Grief Is Not Like Your Grief, Learning to Live After Unimaginable Loss. Theo's story is unique, but the things that she learned after 50 and the beautiful wisdom that she has taken from it, I think is really going to touch you, whether it's that you resonate with it right now or you realize you're glad you heard this because it touches your life later. I have been devouring your book, My Grief Is Not Like Your Grief. I bought the book. Actually, you might want to know this. We had met at a conference thing that we were at, and you stood up and spoke a moment about the work that you were doing and about your book. And I was kind of behind you, and I whip out my phone and I quick go to Amazon. I ordered your book before I ever got up out of my chair.
Thank you.
It's so good. Girl, it's legit so good. You're an excellent writer, which I know you're an English teacher and creative writer, but that doesn't always guarantee a strong writer, and you are indeed. So it was fantastic. And I bought the book, start reading it. When I knew we were going to do the interview, I've had it with me, and I always look at it. I'm very drawn to the cover. I'm not sure why, but and so I start reading it, and then I was leaving on vacation. I realized I can't stop in the middle of this book. I have already cried in the doctor's office reading it because it was so good. Everybody turned and looked. I was like, I'm sorry, but I didn't see this part coming. And which, much like you. And so then I ordered the Kindle and took it on my vacation and finished it up. And it's well written, and it's a wonderful tribute to your parents. And tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, I'm just a Texas farm girl, and I was born and raised here in Whitney, Texas, which is where I've come back to now. And my parents were peanut farmers, Of course, we had watermelons, cantaloupes, black-eyed peas, everything else. But
Amen.
our main source of income was peanuts.
Hmm.
And my dad was also a country preacher. And so he always would say, Sue, that was my mom's name. Sue got a double whammy. She's a farmer and a preacher's wife.
She did.
Yeah. And my parents were just, I compared my dad to the Charles Ingalls of our county.
Oh.
He would preach so many people's funerals. He married people. He counseled people. He was just such a strong staple and consistent constant for everyone. And my mom was just that perfect complement. She was just this quiet, soft, subtle person in her space. She was deaf from a young age. She lost her hearing at 18 months. And then she learned how to communicate at age 10. And just a beautiful love story that my parents had. And it was 2019. And we had been planning my mom and dad's 50th wedding anniversary celebration.
Wow. Wow.
And I was home for the summer. And I believe the first line of that book says, in June of 2019, I had it all.
Yeah.
Successful husband, wonderful parents. My daughter was in college at A&M University.
Oh.
Everything great. And
Yeah.
then July 29th, 2019, I got the phone call.
Yeah.
And I learned when I got to the farm that my father had run over my mother with one of the farm tractors, and it had killed her instantly. So from that moment on, my life completely changed. And I that was the first domino to fall, so to speak. Over the next several years, everything else fell apart. My marriage fell apart. Then I lost my counselor that was counseling me and my dad. She died suddenly. Then 3 years after the accident, on Father's Day morning, 2022, I went to check on Daddy and take him breakfast like I usually did and surprise him for Father's Day. And I found he had taken his life. So that was almost the close of a chapter, a close of chapters in the book. And I was able to fit Daddy in. I was just a few weeks from publishing the grief book. I'd been journaling and decided to write a grief book about my mom. And I'd added in my marriage and the divorce. I'd added in my counselor. But then I'm 2 weeks from the publishing deadline and my dad dies. And I'm just like on a Zoom with my publishers. And instead of a Kleenex, I had a bath towel. That's how I was crying.
Oh, honey.
And I just said, I can't finish the book. It's not even on my radar. But do you know, the very next week,
Yeah.
I was back writing and fitting Daddy beautifully into the book. And I met my deadline. I got Daddy in that book. And I tell everybody, it wasn't me. This book was a download from God, a message that God knows that the world needs. And my fingers were just the, what do you call it?
Like you're just transcribing.
Yes, they were just what God used to get the message out there. So now, rather than teaching high school and 150 students a year, I feel like I'm helping, thousands of people and hoping the ripple effects of the book. And the title, I'd love to go into the title for a minute.
Tell us.
I did not title the book My Grief Is Not Like Yours so that everybody would read about my grief. I titled it so that the grievers out there like me could own that title for themselves. And that's why the questions after every chapter with the journaling lines, that we're trying to get the reader to put their pain on its pages so that they can own their grief and feel entitled to their grief. Because that's how I was feeling early on. I felt unheard. I felt like people were not remembering my mom. That's why I put the 100 Things exercise in there, because I just wanted to remember her.
Yeah, so I love that.
It's just a voice crying out. That book is me crying out for people to witness and hear my grief.
Yeah. And I think that you're offering what you didn't have necessarily in a really good way. Like I do love about the book, I've not recently lost anyone, but I suspect, that may be in my future, given my age and my parents' age, etc. And so looking at the book, I thought to myself, this is such a great tool. It's a great tool for someone who has recently lost, or I'm telling you, it was also just a really good read, just to be able to learn your story. I think one of the beautiful things about women is that throughout the centuries, we've shared our stories to bless each other and to teach each other and to maybe lighten each other's loads in some way from what we've learned. And this book does that in spades. And here's an example of how you write so beautifully. As you said that your mom had hearing loss, but she learned to speak. And you said this when you were thinking about her passing. You said, I wish I could have seen her when she first heard an angel's voice. It's supposed to be a sound like we've never heard before, but for Mama, so much more. No more buzzing or unpleasant ringing in her ears, just pure pitch perfect sound coming from trumpets, angels singing, and the swish of butterfly wings. And I was sort of taken by that because there's a lot of horror that goes with an unexpected death, and in particular when it's catastrophic. And that's what your mother's was. And at least on this side, right?
You're right.
And that you got to a place that you could find some beauty, find a crack in that wall to try to let the light through. I think part of me wants to say, how hard is that? Or how do you find that space within yourself to be able to do that?
You know, my daddy was a preacher and a writer. He wrote poetry about the farm, and he wrote sermons, and he would write poems and read them at funerals. He would preach. And I'm now doing that. I'm actually going to be reading a poem this Saturday for my former brother-in-law that passed suddenly. And he's the father of my nephew. My nephew is 17, and his dad just passed, and his dad was 49. And here's what I know. I know that God has gifted me through my father that gift of being able to lighten the emotional burden at funerals, of being able to bring a different perspective through our words of how to think of our loved one now. My mom's best friend, she passed away last year. And these poems, I don't find out somebody died and then decide, oh, I'm going to write a poem. No, I don't even think about it. I'm grieving. I'm in the shower. It just starts coming in my head.
Wow, that's
beautiful. I can't stop it. And so it's a gift from my dad, from God, and daddy's passed it on to me. And my mom's best friend died. What I was saying is I wrote a poem. She loved babies. She worked in a nursery most of her life. She was in her 80s when she passed. But to this day, I still get emails from people that were at that funeral that say that poem was 100% her and how they loved. And the poem is titled, and I've included it in my second book as a little extra in the back. The poem is titled, Heaven Has a New Nursery.
Oh.
And so I go through how heaven put out a wanted ad, and they needed Pat, because they needed somebody to rock, bottle, and swaddle, and they needed somebody to cradle. And so for my former brother-in-law, it's going to be similar to that. And these words just come to me, and I don't want to say it's a curse, but it is such a gift. And I'm so honored to be able to help people in their darkest time to see some of the light.
Yeah.
Because that's what God is wanting us to see.
That is so beautiful. A lot of Butterfly Days is encouraging people that over 50, and even though you don't look it, I know that you are.
I am 53.
There you go, girls. But over 50, one of the things that we begin to realize is some of the tools that have evolved from our earned wisdom that are in our toolbox. Some of them came from lovely moments and others from the hard times. What do we walk away with? And kind of what I love that you're saying is that you've chosen a gift to use to bless others. And that's one of the most powerful things I think that we could do in midlife is figure out, okay, I'm not that 20-year-old anymore. I've got some things that I know now, some things maybe that were passed on to me where the mantle was handed to me, which I think is in your case. you know? And that's incredibly beautiful. Incredibly beautiful. Now, we should say, because your daddy died by suicide, he was trying to process your mother's loss and that he had been involved in it. It was accidental, absolutely. But he also, do I understand correctly? Because I think a lot of the women in our audience will kind of connect to this piece, maybe. He probably did have some dementia beginning.
Yes. And the accident actually, the doctors told us, actually catapulted him about 6 years. Just that one accident. Because what he saw, what he must have seen, what I try to imagine that he saw was what a soldier would see on a battlefield.
Yeah.
But it was his wife
Yeah.
of 50 years that he adored, and the mother of his 2 daughters. And so I can't bear to think of the pain inside. And then, you know, that was in 2019. And then 2020, COVID happened.
Yeah.
And COVID really isolated so many of our elderly.
Yes.
And he couldn't
Great
go out
point.
to lunch and get away from, you know, he couldn't have fellowship with friends, and they wouldn't come to visit him. And it was breaking his heart. And he didn't understand COVID. He didn't even have a cell phone, so much less try to understand what COVID was.
Yeah.
And, you know, he lasted 3 years longer than I thought he would.
Yeah.
And I'll admit I had dropped my guard, and being a caregiver of an aging parent is not an easy task.
No.
And if
And
you're
you're
out
doing it in the
there-
middle of grieving, girl.
Right, and menopause.
And
You know, it didn't dawn on me until Leanne Morgan, that comedian lately, has really
Yes,
been
love
shedding a
her.
light on, love her, shedding a light on menopause. And by the
Yeah.
way, I don't know why it's called menopause,
I know. What is
you know,
that?
and why is a hysterectomy his,
Wow. Wow.
you know?
I'm going to
It
have
should
to
be
look
a-
into this.
It should be a hysterectomy.
It is a
And it should be a
hysterectomy.
womanopause. But,
Ain't no pausing.
but yeah, I didn't even realize that was a thing. It's not even in the first book, or I would have talked about it.
You know, that's a brilliant observation, is that, I mean, you're telling us a story in which you are dealing with huge stressors, menopause, changes, all in one moment, and yet you're still standing, girl. I mean, I'm really proud of you as a sister.
Thank you so much. I attribute it to, of course, my faith, my friends, my family, my foundation. It's all those
Yeah.
F words that I talk
Yes.
about in chapter 11. You got to get more F words, people. Women, I was a 47-year-old high school teacher, and I wrote the book for the 47-year-old high school teacher because that was me. And friends would come over during these early times of grief and bring gifts, which were great books. And I would just flip through the pages really fast, looking for the page that would hit me as hard as I'd been hit.
Oh,
And I couldn't find it. And I was
Yeah.
like, where's the page where the dad runs over the mom with the tractor, you know? And I just couldn't find it. And I just said, I have to write it.
yeah. Yeah, I'm inspired. You know, you spoke about your friends, and one of the themes that I really come in hot on is the critical nature of women's friendships, especially in midlife, because you experienced this fairly early where you lost your parents, and certainly it was another level with the trauma, and there's the divorce and the other loss of Gail, which we'll talk about in a minute. But our friendships are not frosting, they are cake.
There you go. Good way to say that. I have a group of ladies. I call them my fairy blonde mothers.
I love this so much.
And they magically appear anytime things are bad. I may not talk to them for 2 or 3 months, but if I called them right now and said, I need you to call me, they're on the phone. And they just continue to show up in my life. And they're my fairy blonde mothers. I mean,
Yeah.
that's all there is to it. And
were y'all this close before the incident, or because I'm gonna guess that it up leveled it to go through it together?
yes, we were close, but not this close. Great
Right.
point. After Mama's accident, we got a little closer. Then after my husband and the
Yeah.
infidelity and the going through divorce, we got really close.
Yeah.
And one of the fairy blonde mothers was my check-in. She called me every morning to check in and every evening to check in.
God
because
bless her.
all the losses, my divorce really dropped me to my knees, because that's right within your walls, right? Like,
Oh,
the one that you think that is there to support you the most, you find out is there to support you the least.
yeah. The
And
betrayal of that. I'm so sorry that you had that happen, by the way.
it just took the floor out from under me. And so my friend Charlene, one of the Fairy Blonde mothers, she said, I'm going to be your morning and evening check-in, and I'm going to tell you how much better you're going to be on the other side of this. Because when I went through it years ago, she had breast cancer. I mean, some horrible things when her divorce happened. And she said, I had a lady do this for me, so now I'm going to do it for you.
Oh, I love that.
And now I'm doing it for someone.
Oh, I
And,
love that.
we're passing on what only a woman can do.
Yes, because we're so community built, set up
Yes.
for that. And the power of being able to love it's one of the most sacred acts I think that we ever do. Of course, there are families that's beautiful and precious, but there is something extraordinary about women's friendships and the way that we're able to hold each other up. As a matter of fact, part of my audience is moving into 70s. And when I look at the data on women being alone in those years, I have great concern for them, because you're going to need that kind of support. But you can't make new old friends.
Yeah.
If you want to have great friends, you got to backfill it and now begin to look around. In the book, you give a little advice about finding friends. You want to share it?
Yes. If you don't have one, make one. My
love
dog is a great companion. He's laying over here right now in his bed. He's 11 years old. He's
Oh.
been through all of it with me. I dedicated the first book to him. I'm dedicating the second book to him. He's been there, laid beside me and Daddy in the night that Mama died, laid beside me when, my ex left. And he's been one of those furry friends. But if you don't have any friends, you need to be one. You need to be a friend to someone. You need to find someone. Women have got to have that. Gail, my counselor, talked every time we met. She talked about how important it was for females to have that bond. So much more stronger than any male, men get together and they can't talk about anything because they don't want to feel it. But
Right.
women, I'm a feeler. Now, my daughter, she's a criminal defense attorney, Houston, Texas. She doesn't do
Amen.
emotion. So she makes a great attorney.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't she doesn't like to feel outwardly, but that's her profession. I'm a feeler. I'm a writer. I can't wait to feel all the feelings. So I like to just get in a room with women that like to feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so important. It's nourishing. It's all the things. And it's also preventive for later in life, not ending up with loneliness as a challenge on board. You cannot get around it. Your health is going to some degree, be less something you can count on over time. Consequently, your friends really begin to have a value in the long term that you might not have thought about early on. And it's important to not only have that support, but the other piece of it is it's insanely nourishing to be that support for somebody.
Oh, it is. Nothing gives me greater joy and fuel in this journey to help other people than to help other people.
Yeah.
And, when I hear from somebody at a book event that my book really helped them, or that they felt like they weren't alone in all these feelings that some people might think are crazy. Like, I talk in the book about wishing that I could just be in that casket with my mom. That's just how much I craved. And I had a woman come up to me at a book event. She didn't realize that by her telling me that it made her feel like she wasn't going crazy, it was helping me to know that what I wrote, I wasn't going crazy. Because she went and read that to her son at the cemetery who had died in a car accident.
Oh.
And and then she bought the book for her whole family at Christmas. She gave them all a copy and said, "Here's how I feel, read it." She didn't have to tell them. She just said, "Read,
It's
this is how I
perfect.
feel."
It's a good tool. Actually, I've got a little list of who might be getting one for Christmas. You mentioned the wise, the amazing counselor, Gail, who you worked with. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Gail?
Gail was just second in command. It was my mom and then Gail for advice. And I'd always, some people have said, well, why'd you have a counselor? Well, I always thought, even as a school teacher, it's very important that we exercise this muscle, the brain. We exercise everything else, but we got to exercise this one. This is the most important one. So I would go to Gail, honestly, just to pay somebody to listen to me. And she would just spit out these one little sentence things, and I would get one little nugget of wisdom every time I met with her. So after 18 years, I have a lot of things in my little Gail toolbox.
Yeah.
And she'd help me through like blended marriage, raising a teenage daughter, job change, things like that.
Yeah.
Minor issues. But on the night of July 29th, 2019, it was a major issue. And we had such a great relationship that when I text her, she actually texted me back.
Oh,
That's when, I said, my dad's saying horrible things I've never heard him say. He's a preacher.
Yeah.
He's saying words I didn't even know he knew.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, let him say the words that he needs to say. Those are the words that carry the weight of his pain.
Yeah.
And how important as a society that we recognize that.
Yeah.
We quit analyzing how people grieve and just let them grieve. Give them the space to grieve however they grieve.
Yeah. They got to let it out. It's toxic.
It is. And that's what's wrong with America now. I recently completed a research study on the state of grief in America with the Center of Generational Kinetics out of Austin, Jason Dorsey.
Okay.
I did the research study. There's some findings in my second book that comes out in December. You can also download the research study from the book, or from pre-ordering the second book. You can download the entire study. But one of the stats that's coming top of mind right now to share with your audience is that 79% of grieving Americans wish that the media would talk more about grief and how to cope.
Yeah.
79. So picture 100 people in a room.
Yeah.
79 people are raising their hands saying, please talk about it more and help us.
Yeah.
It's a rallying call. There's a rallying cry for grievers to be heard. And it breaks it down by generations. Gen Zs are 21 to 27-year-olds, I think.
Right.
And they're not showing their grief. They're hiding it. They're the highest of all the generations that are hiding their grief. They don't want to share openly their grief. Well, what happens when our Gen Zers have babies? So we're right on the cusp of a major mental health crisis. We're already in a mental health crisis. On a major grief crisis that I believe contributes to the mental health crisis.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we would be well served by more of us who have any understanding about grief to begin to talk about it more openly, to disseminate it. I mean, I don't know what you know about my background, but I'm a certified death doula and I volunteer with Houston Hospice. And I bring it up at dinner parties. Death or grief, whatever, but I can stop a conversation, girl, like that.
You and me both.
But then people start talking, and it's so, don't you feel kind of thrilled and revitalized that this taboo subject, which we need to talk about, gets out?
Yeah, I don't understand why we've put the gag order on grief in America. It's like nobody can talk about it because it's uncomfortable. When did sad become bad? Sad is a normal emotion. Sad is normal. Sad is not bad. And I'm so tired of being labeled suicidal or being labeled depressed. Yes, that may be the case for some, and they need to seek appropriate counseling.
Of course.
But sometimes you're just sad, and it's okay. It's
okay to be sad. Yeah.
And I just scream that, honestly. It's okay to be sad. We don't have to label ourselves. And, recently the DSM and the APA have now taken what was called complicated grief, and they've renamed it.
Oh.
Okay. Get this. They've renamed it prolonged grief disorder.
Oh,
So
gosh.
they're basically saying that if you're grieving and you're sad, you have a disorder.
Yeah.
So that's like saying, Tammy, that if you love, you've got a disorder.
Yes, because it's a natural response to that loss. And actually, grieving and sadness is a sign that you have loved and that you are processing through how that love will be differently experienced in the post when they're here chapter, right?
Yes,
Oh my goodness, that's normal and healthy to do that. It's not comfortable, it's not easy, but it's necessary to be healthy.
and I have been on several podcasts recently, and I'm saying I'm not going to tackle that battle with that new title of prolonged grief disorder. But I am hoping once they get wind of my research study and they see some of that, that they'll realize they need to rename that, because had I not gotten my diagnosis early on, 2 weeks after my mom's death, I got the complex grief and was able to turn that paperwork into the school district where I work to get family leave. And had I not gotten that, I don't know that I'd be here today.
Yeah.
Because when she told me I had complex grief or complicated grief, it's like, yay, I knew I belonged. There was not
Yes.
anything wrong with me. I'm not going crazy. This is normal.
Yeah, this is
And
just hardcore sadness.
right. But now you can't even be diagnosed with prolonged grief disorder until you've had it at least 12 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it's bad. So there's nothing right now for those people that are experiencing traumatic loss early on to give them a name to what they have. And it's very important that you be given a name for what you have.
Yeah, agreed.
It gives you belonging and it gives you camaraderie, you know.
Sure. And a
You,
framework to sort of house some very complex emotions as you go through it.
I've been
I mean, you're
blessed with
not alone. That's what you're saying, is you're not alone once you realize there's a name to it, because this means other people must feel this way and they got through it. Maybe I can too. I'm always really impressed because the subtitle of your book was Learning to Live After Unimaginable Loss. And I think of your losses. First, your mama, your beloved mama. You came from a tight, intact family. Not everyone does, but you were fortunate enough to. You lose your mom. Then your therapist that you're working with is lovely. She begins to work with your dad, and your dad. Oh wait, before that though, does she die first or do you have the divorce first?
she dies first.
So so she didn't even, oh, I'm sorry, she wasn't there for the next part.
I
So
know.
then you lose Gail, who is your confidant, who's your guide, who's helping you. And then marriage falls apart. I cannot tell you, some of the numbers I've been looking at lately with they call it gray divorce after 50, which is just such a mean title, but whatever. But there are many, many women listening to this who are also going through divorce and finding their way. Do you have any, I don't know, do you have any insight into that? Or would you share anything about that experience that you think made it tougher?
It was very tough, but I came out on the other side so much better. And so if you're doubting how you're going to go on, if you're doubting yourself, don't. Just tell yourself no. You know, it depends on what situation you're in, but I was in a situation where things were not getting better, but they were getting worse, and it was because I was allowing them to get worse.
Right.
And I wanted to stand up for myself, and I wanted my daughter to see that it's not right that you would live in a marriage with infidelity. It's not right to just let that keep kind of walking on me. So I just decided I'm going to just do this. And so my advice, number one, is to get a counselor or a friend, get somebody that you can confide in, that you can talk to daily. Yes, that you trust, that you can talk to daily, that's going to talk you through it in a positive way. And that was my very blonde mother, Charlene, that every single day she said, I know you can't see it right now, but you're going to come out on the other side better. You're going to come out on the other side stronger, and you're going to come out on the other side with something to give back to people that are going through it. So you will get through it, My second book actually does talk a lot about that because I have found a new love. And so,
Oh,
yes,
breaking news.
yes, I have a new love in my life.
Oh.
And, we've decided we'll never get married. That's okay. We're
Yeah.
there for each other.
Yeah.
We're always a phone call away.
Yeah.
And we've both been through pretty difficult marriages, and we
Yeah.
both just made that promise to each other early on that we will just be there for each other.
Yeah.
We're amazing friends. We love each other. But a little breaking news that I'll give you, a little teaser for the second book.
Yes,
So
please.
the second book is called Hope All the Way. And it's about all the signs that Mama, Daddy, and God sent me since my mom died. And I tried to put those in the first book, but I couldn't fit it in. And the publisher, editors, they said, well, maybe you need to put it in a second book. And then I'm like, oh, I do. So I started working on the second book right after this first book released. And so one of the signs is in the love that I have found. So my dad was a farmer. My mom was deaf.
Right.
So my new love is a farmer, and he's deaf.
That's lovely. That's lovely. That's one of the things that I was going to ask about is how when I'm going to stay in the realm of divorce. In a divorce, it's one of those things where when it's happening, whether you chose it or whether you didn't, you don't want it to be true. You wish it wouldn't happen. For most people, there are people where they need to get out and it's a bad situation. I want to honor that, but that's a separate thing. But I think pretty much most of the women that I've ever spoken with who have been through a divorce say, whether I wanted it or not, it was awful. I wasn't sure that I would be better off afterwards. And it was horribly painful as a result of the changing of the status and the fear of loneliness and all of the things all the story that I told myself about what might be bad. But afterwards, I entered a better chapter somehow, some way, and often pointed ahead tiny steps towards healing at a time by the little signs and the God winks that showed up along the way. It's that great line. Joseph said to his brothers, he'd been traded into into Egypt. He'd been traded into Egypt, and his brothers found him, and he said, you know what, you meant it for evil, but God used it for good. And I think in life, sometimes something happens to you that you just don't want to be true or real. But if you can face it with courage and have a certain amount of hope and trust inside you, you can get to a better place that you're actually glad that you're no longer where you thought you were.
I'm so happy in the place I'm at now. So in the first book, I have a chapter called The D Diets, the death, divorce, and discovery. And the favorite diet is the discovery. You're not only remembering food and discovering, because during the death and divorce diet, I did not like food anymore. I stopped eating. I lost 23 pounds in a month. Food was not on my radar. And at time of a death in the country here in Texas, food just comes in like crazy. And I didn't want any of it. I was actually angry at anybody that could eat when my mom had just died, this horrific death. And I talk about that in detail in that first book. But the discovery diet, that's my favorite part of the book. The discovery diet is when I discovered who I am without other people. And ladies, you can't really discover who you are if you've always been in the shadow of someone else. You've got to discover yourself. And, Romans 8:28 is the second part of what you were just talking about, the good. God works all things for good for those that love him. And I know that God has taken horrible tragedy of my mom, the death of my father, my divorce, my loss of my counselor, and he has taken them and put them all in one book. And that's the good. So the good is that I was able to share the story to help other people. So God does take everything that's bad and turn it for good. And that's the good in our God. Yeah. But you can't find that discovery diet until you've been through those others. And
Yeah.
you may not be experiencing a death right now. You may not be experiencing a divorce right now, but you can still experience a discovery diet.
I love that. And you know something? Maybe you are not experiencing either one of those things at this time, but two things. One, you ain't over. So let's see how that goes. But two, you might know somebody that you care about deeply and understanding the importance of going through grief and loss and facing it, but keeping that kernel of hope inside that maybe somehow your life could be better. That's a game changer,
You
you
know,
know?
hope is always there waiting for us.
Yeah.
Hope is never invisible or gone, or I'm sorry, it sometimes is invisible to us
Hmm.
because we have to open our eyes to see it.
Yeah.
But hope is always there. And I'll take the example of my best girlfriend here in my hometown. We went to a football game, and this is in the second book. I talk about, she's talking about this farmer, and I said, "Oh, I don't want to date a farmer. Daddy was a farmer. Mom would be so upset if I was dating a farmer." And but I ended up going on a date. And I
Yeah.
texted my friend and said, it was really wonderful. And she said, even if it doesn't work out, she said, even if it doesn't work out, it will show you hope.
Mm. What a good friend, because that's the truth. And the really, really good friends, they speak the truth to us, right?
Yeah. And just simple. It doesn't have to be any big thing, just a very
Yeah.
simple, even if it doesn't work out. She was preparing me.
Yeah.
It will show you hope. And
Yeah.
she knew I was kind of feeling hopeless, you know, but hope is always there. We just have to open our eyes to it. And my dad being a minister, he's always speaking of our blessed hope. But I have said this many times. The two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you know why you were born. And I know beyond the shadow of a doubt, I was born to write that first book. There are other books that will come out. I even want to do a little bedtime box set of bedtime stories that my dad would tell us. I'm going to do that.
Oh.
You know, I've got
Oh.
so many books in my head that I need to write, but that first book, and the reason I've won 18 national and international awards on that book is because God is trying to show me, because I'm a little hard headed, He's trying to show me that I'm on the right path. And
Yeah.
while I'm on this path, there's a lot of people that will tell me to get off of it. Don't
Hmm.
spend so much money on your book. Nobody's going to buy a book with the word grief on it. No, you know, there's a lot of naysayers. So if you're a lady out there who's got a passion about something and you've got a meaning in your life, when you put that meaning into action to help other people, then it becomes your purpose. And people are going to try to get you off that path. And I don't know why. It's probably because they're uncomfortable in their own path.
Hmm.
But if you see something as clearly as I see what I'm doing, just be ready for the naysayers. And
Love it.
you don't have to listen. You know, I heard Carrie Underwood recently. She said when she does a social media post, she doesn't look at any of the comments. She does what's called a post and ghost.
I like it.
And so, you know what, people, you can post and ghost your life and just keep the blinders on, stay on your path, because that meaning and passion in your life is meant to be put into purpose for other people.
I love that so much. And that's a lot of what we talk about here at Butterfly Days, that somewhere over 50, you begin to find that maybe there's maybe everything that happened kind of comes together in a way for you to be able to serve and to show up that you didn't expect before. I mean, if anybody, you're living a very rich chapter. And I think to myself, if anybody had told you at 20 that you may actually be moving into some of your best years, wouldn't that have blown you away?
Oh, yeah. You know,
But it's so good.
Mama used to always say her 40s were her most favorite time. She
Aw.
felt like she understood things more. She was giving back so much to me and helping me with my daughter, raising,
Yeah.
you know, my daughter got to grow up on the farm and they just gave back. My parents were just constantly givers through the church and their ministry in this area. And I just want to continue on with what they set the example. Daddy always said, if you're ever feeling bad about yourself, go to a nursing home and visit some people. If you're
Yeah.
ever If you're ever feeling bad about yourself, go help someone, because then all of a sudden you don't feel bad for yourself anymore, because you're putting your attention, your focus outside of yourself and onto others. And that's what Daddy and Mama did. They were constantly helping other people. And I didn't even realize how much, Tami, until I was at the visitation for my dad. And a lady came up and she said, I never even knew your parents, but their son was bedridden and he was staying at a facility in the town where the funeral was. And she said she came in from Houston to visit him because she had to keep him at this certain facility because it was the best. And when she walked in, she saw my mom and dad in there, and he was deaf. There's her son, and my mom was in his ear whispering to him, and my dad was joking with him, and just they would visit this young boy every week. Nobody knew this, and they didn't even know him, but they learned about him while they were at the nursing home visiting other people.
Wow.
And so I keep hearing stories like this all the time. So I ask people all the time, what stories are people going to be telling when you're gone?
Yeah, legacy, man. Think about it now.
Yeah, what are you doing that your children are going to hear that you did when you're gone? And every remembrance of my parents, they were standing up. My dad standing at the pulpit, my mom standing in the kitchen, my parents visiting and standing in the hallway at nursing homes and visiting people. So how are our relatives, children, friends going to remember us when we're gone? Were we standing or were we sitting?
Oh, that is so good, because that I love what your dad said. I kind of tried to live it for my own self, just the sacred calculus of in it for it, Saint Francis said it right. For it is in giving that we receive. And you don't give to receive, you give because you believe that there's power in it and that you can do good and you're willing to show up and do that. But you do end up finding your own soul nourished when you choose to be there for somebody else that might need it. That's a powerful, powerful thing. And that's like the first level of it. But the second is that when you head out, many of us have recently been to funerals. And when you head out, think about all of the things that have been said about people that you've recently been to a funeral. I've been to a couple, and they were folks who left in their 60s, which is very young, by the way. Let's be clear about that. And but the extraordinary lives and the kindnesses that got told, be that it's going to make me cry. Be that person. That's who your parents were,
Yeah.
And look at the good that they do now through you.
I'll never know the ripple effects of the book on this side of heaven. I'll never know how many people it has helped. And I had a lady last week that said that she felt like my book spoke so well to suicide. Her son had taken his life. So she was like, you need to go talk to more groups of, suicide survivors and families that have lived through this. And there's just so many different themes in my book because there were so many losses. But in all of those, one common thing, a common theme among all of those losses is love.
Yeah.
The love that remains, the love that God showed us, the love that we show others.
Yeah.
And, love wins in the end. I don't know if anybody's read
every
this.
time.
That love wins in the end. Love is the most powerful force on earth. And I remember when my little youngest nephew was about 4, and he said, Aunt Birdie, because that's my name, Aunt Birdie.
Oh, I love it.
Aunt Birdie, what's the most powerful force in the world? And I was like, Superman, Spider-Man, and he just looked at me and he goes, no, it's love.
Aww.
4 years old.
It is. It's that sacred thread that goes through all of the times, good, bad, indifferent, that we humans will go through. But it is the one thread that gives meaning and higher purpose and just all of the things that mean most to us. They come in on that thread and they connect us. And the power of that, you can see it in your book. You can hear it in your work. And I hope that this podcast, if you're listening to it and it struck you, or if you know someone who could be moved by it, I hope you will share it. Know that you can thinktheo.com is your website. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you are on Facebook. What do I have you? I have you Facebook, TikTok, and Threads. correct?
And Instagram.
And of course, the Instagram.
Think Theo. It's all Think Theo or Theo Boyd. And, the second book, we've got the website, hopealltheway.com. And
Beautiful.
I want people to know that, yeah, the first book was grief and it's heavy. And there's even a content note in the beginning because you've got to be aware of your mental health journey when you read this book, because it was a lot of healing for me. And then I found out it was helping other people in their healing journey. But the second book is the hope. I want people to know there's always a second book being written. So what are you going to allow that second book to be? It's in the darkness that we're better able to see the light. When you're in the light all the time, you don't really notice the light.
Take it for granted.
Yeah, but it's funny how we get in the darkness and all of a sudden the light really becomes obvious to us. Yeah. So if you're in the dark right now, I just, and I did recently become a certified grief educator because I love hearing from people. I love helping people. So, if you're in the dark right now, I'd urge you to join one of those grief groups online or, shoot an email to me. You can get me through my website. But my passion is continuing the legacy of my parents and helping people because now I see how richly they were blessed in their life and I see the benefits of helping others.
Oh, that's just amazing. So please, this subject is important. There were a lot of layers to it. And if you are moved, please feel free to share it with somebody who might need it. Grief's a big thing, and to have support going through it is great. If you're interested in having Theo come speak to your group live or online, you can find that information also on her website. But we are so grateful that you came and chose to show up with your whole heart, Miss Theo. I know you've got a lot of family things going on right now, and yet you chose to shine in the middle of it. And I don't know, well, you're making me cry. I don't know that there's a finer way to have honored yourself or your parents in doing that. And I just want you to know, whatever happens here, girl, I'm rooting for you. You're doing good work, and
thank you so much. And I want to apologize to the viewing audience out there. If you were listening, you don't realize that I have on no makeup. I've been crying all morning. My eyes are red and puffy. But if you do want me to come speak, believe me, I do clean up well, and I'll put on that makeup and a pretty dress.
I've seen her.
Yeah, I can clean up good, but I'm really grieving right now for my nephew, and I'm gonna be there for him. And, that's what it's about. And I'm going to share my words.
Way forward.
I'm going to share my words at the funeral and make everybody's heart a little bit lighter in a bad time.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. Thank you for joining us today. Theo Boyd's new book is due out in December, and it will be available on Amazon.com. You can learn more about it on her website. What a magnificent conversation. She is such a beautiful, shining light of a human, and I hope that you have also enjoyed it as much as I did. I look forward to seeing you in the future, and if you want to share more with me about this, go look at my Substack page, and you'll see the SpeakPipe link. That's a voicemail online. I would love to hear from you. I'm so grateful you listened to this episode. I hope it was a real value to you. If there's a sister in your life who needs this message, please share it, just like women have done to lift each other up over the centuries and across cultures. Women lifting each other is so important. It's why I do this work. And to avoid FOMO and keep up leveling your own life, make sure you don't miss the next episode. You may be losing hormones, but your life has given you powerful perspective. And I believe you have something to give that no one else does, that the world needs. So remember, I'm rooting for you.